So we're here. It's Saturday, amazing morning. I'm 2 cups of coffee in. I know it's a little later for you, Staci, but we have the opportunity to visit with Staci Swiderski, the CEO and owner of Family Source Consultants. This is going to be a 2-part episode. We're going to discuss and learn about families that become parents through surrogacy. And the second episode, we're going to talk about egg donation and how that affects both sides as well. So in this first episode, we're going to dive into educating our listeners on how they can help families through so they can help families through surrogacy. And we want to really learn about both sides. So Staci, tell us first how you got into this, what your story is, and then let's start talking how we can help our families understand that process.
Absolutely. Well, first, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and share my story and what we do here at Family Source. So I'll back up quite some time. My husband and I, we experienced infertility, and we grew our family through a gestational surrogate, also known as a gestational carrier. So we hear it, either or is correct. And my goodness, I really started researching the information, the topic, like almost 2 decades ago. So our son now, fast forwarding, he's now 16. So that really just ignited my interest and my passion in helping others build their families as well. So with that, I launched our company back in 2007, 2 years after my son was born. He was born in 2005, started the company January of 2007. And it has just been the most rewarding. I can't even say it enough. Just amazing opportunity to see so many families, over 1,000 babies that have been born through our agency and over the years through both surrogacy and egg donation. And I would like to also include, in addition to somebody helping us build our family through third-party reproduction and surrogacy, after that, I realized that, if I could help somebody else grow their family through what I could provide, I want to do that. So I was approached by a friend who had a neighbor who was looking for an egg donor. And so after I've gone through my own egg retrievals, I knew the process. I had successful retrievals. I thought, well, maybe, this is something I can help them. And so I did. So I donated twice for this family, a beautiful family. They had a daughter already that they had adopted. So after my donations for them, they grew their family by 2, and they have a son and a daughter through my donation. So I've kind of been on both sides. I've helped a family grow, but I've been very blessed to have somebody help myself and my husband grow our family.
Oh, what an incredible story. And hearing that you said over 1,000 babies.
Yeah. Exciting. Since 2007. So we just celebrated our 15th anniversary this past January. I guess this month, we're ending the month, but we celebrated our 15th year of family building. So it's been incredible.
So Staci, tell us if you have some statistics as we're looking at how many families are we talking about that are in this space where they're trying to find a way to be a parent?
Great question. Well, when you look at the statistics, 1 out of every 6 people who are trying to conceive, are infertile in one way or another. And so you look at the total population in the entire world, because we're an international agency. So we help not only United States here in our country, but internationally. So grow their families. So it's a lot. A lot of people have experienced infertility. In addition to that, obviously, we have, the same-sex community where they need a surrogate and an egg donor to build their families too. So it's quite busy. It's pretty amazing.
Well, let's dive into surrogacy. Let's talk about from the side where you are considering helping a family by being a surrogate. Let's talk about what that looks like and what that process is.
Yeah. So definitely on the surrogate's perspective, first and foremost, it's just amazing that they're even thinking of moving forward to help somebody create their families. So, we'll touch on the criteria that the surrogates really have to meet in order to even be considered. And so some of that is pretty black and white. So obviously they've had to have at least one child of their own, be raising that child, and obviously an overall healthy pregnancy. So that's definitely a criteria. So we could not, unfortunately, accept a surrogate who's never been a mother herself and carried that child. And then in addition to that, we're looking at overall health, and also emotionally, mentally, that stability is super important. BMI requirements, those are put into place. Our agency accepts surrogates who have a BMI of 33 and below. And you're going to see that throughout the industry that kind of wavers a little bit. Some fertility centers may accept a surrogate with a higher BMI of maybe 34, 35, and some may cap it at 30, 31. So we're kind of right in the middle at 33. So you have the BMI that's really important. Also age comes into play. We accept surrogates up to 43 of age. Again,
oh, wow.
Yeah, because really the age of the uterus, you probably have seen on news or magazines or what have you, on social media, that you've seen grandparents that have carried. So most importantly, it's the embryo quality. And obviously the uterus really ages much slower than our ovaries and our egg quality. So surrogates can definitely within our program be up to age 43, 21 to 43 for surrogates. Obviously non-smokers, non-drinkers, that's the obvious. And then in addition, we have to really pay attention to their location, because here within the United States, the surrogacy laws really are case by case with each and every state. So they have their own laws that apply to surrogacy. So for example, here in Illinois, it's a pre-birth order state. And what that means is that the intended parents' names can go directly on the birth certificate, as long as one of those intended parents are genetically linked to their baby and utilizing their genetics. And then other states, like right next door to Illinois is Michigan. It's illegal. We cannot accept a surrogate from Michigan. So she could really be the best candidate in every other aspect of physical, mental, emotional health, great pregnancies, but just because she's in Michigan, we can't move forward. So those are some of the relevant criteria that we look for within a surrogate.
Staci, I have a question on that. I think it is such a beautiful thing that these surrogates do. Can you give us an idea of range what is taken care of financially for them, and how do they get through the process? Because I would love your input on, obviously they're doing this out of the love to be able to give to somebody else, which I think is just so amazing. But what are they really looking at as far as commitment, financial, all of that?
Yeah, great question. The commitment in itself is obviously just overwhelming, and it's huge. And so it's something that they really, really are researching. We educate them so highly, as well as the psychological screening that all surrogates as well as their partner have to complete before they're fully accepted into the program. So yeah, definitely they cannot just be financially focused. Yes, they will be compensated, but they also, most importantly, they want to feel, they have the heart to help a family. And I'll tell you, the surrogates who we accept into our programs, they're angels. They really are. They say, if I've ever experienced infertility and I wasn't able to have my children, I would want somebody to do this for me. And because, they've experienced pregnancy, they enjoy it. A lot of women they love being pregnant, but you know what? They're done having their children. They're like, no more. I would love to help a family because I enjoy pregnancy. But once that baby's born, it's in the arms of the parents and they get to sleep all night. The surrogates get to have a nice rest. So in terms of the financial considerations, the surrogates do receive a base compensation. Typically it's right around $40,000 that they would receive. And that, again, that's just base compensation. So that would begin once we have a confirmed pregnancy via heartbeat. And that's usually right around 6 weeks or so of the pregnancy. So if you take that $40,000, and what we do is we typically break that up into a period of 10 payments. So once we have that confirmed pregnancy through heartbeat, they would receive the first compensation, which is $4,000 a month. So every 4 weeks, every month thereafter, they receive that base compensation of the $4,000. In addition to their base compensation, they do receive many other incidentals. For example, an embryo transfer fee for completing the embryo transfer. They'll receive a compensation for that. That's typically $750. Any lost wages, if they were to be put on a doctor ordered bed rest during the pregnancy, they are entitled to lost wages. Obviously, insurance is covered for them by the intended parents. Life insurance, very important. So we really make sure that everybody is well protected. And it really takes a team to make this really ethical, safe, and just really professional from start to finish. So there's always an attorney that's involved. So once the surrogate does complete the medical screening with the intended parents fertility center, at that point, we know she's cleared to move forward with the embryo transfer. Then we get the attorneys involved. And what that means is that each party will have a separate attorney. The intended parents will have their attorney and the surrogate will have her attorney. And they obviously, the attorneys have to specialize in surrogacy, so third party reproduction law. Super important. So yeah, it's really, like I said, it really takes a team to make this little miracle come to life, and again, because it's just so important that every step is secured and ethical. Like I said, the legal has to be put into place, fully executed direct agreement, also known as the contract between the intended parents and the surrogates, prior to the surrogate even beginning any injectable medications to prepare for the embryo transfer.
Oh, thank you for that clarification. That is, I have to say, my family has benefited from this as well. I have a nephew, him and his husband, they were able to have twins. They have a boy and a girl, and it's just such a beautiful gift. So thank you for the clarification on that.
Of course. And see, it's just so common. It seems to be that if somebody hasn't personally experienced third party, reproduction, surrogacy, age donation, or even infertility, if they haven't experienced it themselves, they tend to know somebody who has, like yourself. Yeah. So it's pretty incredible.
You talked about coming from the person that's going to be the surrogate, and we're talking about the commitment, and it's a huge commitment. And one of the things that popped into my head was if the surrogate is working, obviously there's a conversation with the employer. Is there protection there with becoming a surrogate? And what have you seen how employers handle this when it comes to maternity leave and anything that really comes through that 9 months where the employer is, whether they're using their own insurance? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So just like anything else, whether a surrogate, it's a surrogate who's pregnant or, just a regular employee who is caring for themselves, they are protected, of course, through the Pregnancy Act. So that's really important. It's maternity, so they deserve the same bathroom breaks, all of that anybody else would. So yeah, it's something that really, here in the United States, it's definitely not frowned upon. So yeah, they're well protected. For sure. Yeah.
That's good to know. I also wanted to ask you, ratio wise, how many surrogates are coming to you saying this is something I want to do, and in terms of how many families you have?
Great. That's a really great question. We definitely have. I would say I kind of have to break this down a little bit because we are contacted every single day by women who want to be surrogates. All the time. We're receiving inquiries, applications. The process, however, is we can't accept them all. So if we were able to do that, then it would probably be pretty even as far as the ratio of intended parents as well as surrogates. But because we really only accept probably under 5 to 10% of the surrogates who actually apply, we definitely have an increased amount of intended parents waiting to be matched with the surrogate versus how many surrogates we have available. Again, because we have to be very selective and careful within the screening process of the surrogates who we can accept to our program. So definitely higher on the intended parent end. Unfortunately, there's a little bit of wait time to be matched. But however, on the surrogacy piece, the amazing thing for them is once they are accepted into the program, there really is no downtime because we have, again, those intended parents who are waiting. And so the matching criteria at that point will come into place, and we can match those surrogates really quickly once we receive all of their information.
So let's talk about the families and what that process looks like, and how, in addition to what the process looks like, I'm curious what the average wait time is for them.
Great question. Yeah, that's always the frustrating piece for the intended parents for sure. Our wait time for intended parents once they officially sign up with our organization is typically anywhere between 3 to 5 months. So sometimes, the intended parents maybe they don't yet have embryos created. So that's a really good time while they're waiting to be matched with a surrogate. They really get started creating their embryos, whether they're utilizing their own eggs or an egg donor. Maybe they still have to, find a fertility center, which obviously we are happy to help them with. But usually right around 3 to 5 months is a great estimate for a wait time.
And in the process for them, what are you doing a similar process that you do for your surrogates? How are you determining families that are going to make good candidates for this?
Yeah, great question. Well, it's not identical because we're not looking at the medical piece, right? So it's a little different there for sure. But definitely the intended parents, when they reach out to us, many of them have already exhausted maybe failures or losses within their own journey before they even reach the surrogacy piece. Or like I said, sometimes they're same sex. So it really is, obviously this is their only route to have potentially a genetic child. But in terms of that, accepting intended parents, it's definitely, we do obviously a criminal background check. That's important, and all parties. So that's important as well. We definitely there, and again, going back to the state laws, for example, Illinois, there has to be a medical necessity to utilize a surrogate for the intended parents. But again, that doesn't mean that we won't accept a surrogate who doesn't have that. We just have to make sure, obviously, they're matched with a surrogate who will deliver in one of those states where that's not a necessity in order to become the legal parent, especially upon birth. So yeah, just many different intended parents come to us around the world for different reasons. Obviously, infertility is one of the major.
You said something, Staci, that, I'm sure maybe a lot of people just starting into this journey haven't really thought about, but just that the laws are so different in every state. How does that affect it internationally as well? Is it more complex?
It really is. So internationally, they come to the United States because of obviously the ease here, very ethical process. But in terms of not so much the surrogacy process here in the United States, but oftentimes when they return home, definitely making sure that their child can become a citizen of that country. But we look at all those angles, and we really rely on those attorneys here in the United States who are just experts. We are really blessed to have those relationships with those attorneys. And they will guide us, and they'll let us know that, hey, these 10 states are probably the best states for these international intended parents, where once the baby's born, it can be a pretty simplified process. So we definitely have those great relationships with those attorneys to make the process pretty smooth for all intended parents.
That's really helpful. I had another question. So you said earlier, they've usually, couples or same sex, whatever, they've usually tried other methods prior, and they get to a point where they're considering this. So what's the first step for them if they're like, oh, I've been thinking about it, but I really don't know what it entails? What's their first step?
Absolutely. So they would just reach out to us, and one of our client relations managers who are very well versed in surrogacy will have a consultation with them, and they will explain the process in detail, spend as much time as needed to make sure that the intended parents are, educated on the process, all their answers or all their questions are answered. And that, by the time they complete that consultation, they're going to be very well versed in the process. And sometimes too, it's just once the intended parents decide that this is the route for them, it's a learning experience from the time that they sign up until after, their babies are born or their child is born. Oftentimes they ask, one of the questions, for example, on the intended parents questionnaire is, how much communication would you like to have with your surrogate? And they think about that after they read it, because maybe they've never really thought about that before. And they're like, I just don't know. And so we'll go over that because, they're being matched at that point with a stranger, so it's just over time, hopefully their relationship will really evolve into just a friendship. Some intended parents, perhaps they want to be super involved and they want this friendship type relationship. And some are more business like, and, of course they want to support their surrogate and they want to be included in, how appointments went and things like that, but they're not so much hands-on. So we really look at all those pieces when we are matching the intended parents with the surrogate. So during the matching process, it's a really delicate time because what we're doing is we're looking at the surrogate's criteria because it's their decision as much as the intended parents' decision, who they want to carry for, and who the intended parents want to match with. So it's a really there's a lot of moving parts. And then even in addition to that, we have to make sure that the surrogate meets the intended parents fertility center's criteria. So again, it's a lot of boxes to check. And before we even get to the matching process between the intended parents and the surrogate, we have to make sure that all those criteria and requirements are aligned.
So it's interesting because if you are doing something out of state, you're going to probably miss out on that opportunity to create that relationship. And if you are within state, which I don't know what that looks as far as how often that happens, but what can that look like? I mean, can they have this ongoing experience with the surrogate where they're attending the doctor's appointments? Are they in the delivery room? Are they flying out if they're not in state? Like, how is that experience?
Yeah, that's a great question. And definitely a lot of people may see it that way, where they believe that, well, I have to be close to the surrogate to really be a part of this journey. And that's, you'd be surprised that some of the best journeys overall are even with international intended parents who are thousands of miles away. And, thanks to technology, right? FaceTiming, emailing, Zooming, and really bringing those intended parents into the process and sharing that information with them. There's some situations where the intended parents may not even meet the surrogate in person until the baby's born. Wow. But they've built such a wonderful and lovely relationship through all these other forms of communication that it feels natural to them. So it's really, we're lucky to have the technology that we do to really make sure that the intended parents are involved and really up to date. And again, we have our team, each match intended parent and surrogate will be assigned a case manager within our program. And that case manager is always informing the intended parents on each step along the way, how the appointments went. So it's just additional information that they're going to receive throughout the entire process. So it's pretty incredible. It really is.
Oh, that's wonderful. I have a question. So we had a little chat before we set up this meeting. And it sparked a conversation. I work with a couple who they just celebrated their triplets' first birthday, and their surrogate was there. And I have not met her, but it sparked a conversation with them amongst a few people. And the question came up, do surrogates ever they're carrying this baby and it may not be, it's not their egg. They have nothing genetically to do with it, but they're carrying this baby. And they asked the question, and I said, I'm going to ask her when we talk. Do you ever see the surrogate who they deliver and kind of feel this bond? Is it hard for them, or is it because they know all along they're doing this to give these baby to a couple? Yeah. Is there ever been a problem, or? And I said, I don't know. Good question.
Well, I'll definitely help answer that. But that is a wonderful and very common question. The surrogates, we have never, ever in 15 years within our organization had a surrogate who felt like a maternal bond with the child. We have, however, had surrogates, inform us afterwards, they miss kind of their relationship with the intended parents. They kind of miss that, not the baby, but the intended parents, that piece of it. And again, during the matching process, why it's so important that is very transparent is, what is everybody's expectation? Does the surrogate want to have an ongoing relationship with her intended parents after the baby's born? But even so, even if they do have this amazing relationship it's just they kind of miss that because they miss sharing pieces of their pregnancy with their intended parents. But never, ever have we had a surrogate ever feel that attachment to the baby as their own. They certainly care about the child. They protected this child for 9 months, but they've never felt that attachment. They, a lot of times they'll tell us that they feel more like it's maybe a niece or a nephew or a friend's child, something of that sort, but not their own child.
Interesting.
Oh, I'm grateful for you to answer that question.
Oh, of course, I'm happy to. Yeah.
So tell us, on a family side, we kind of discussed the financial piece from the surrogate side. What are families looking at financially as they embark on this journey?
Yeah, great question. So there's a few determining factors what's going to really vary that overall cost. But on average, most intended parents should expect to spend, goodness, the cost anywhere between, say, $110,000 up to maybe $150,000. A lot of it really is going to play into, say, the insurance piece. Do they have insurance that covers their IVF to create those embryos for the embryo transfer? So that will play a pretty significant piece of the overall cost. But removing that piece, definitely, they're going to be expecting to spend at least, like I said, probably around $110,000 to $120,000 on the overall process between the surrogate's compensation, the agency fees, the legal fees, and so on and so forth. So it definitely, it's a very expensive process, but obviously very rewarding process. And definitely the intended parents are, they come to us and it's their goal to become a parent. Sometimes we'll have an analogy. They'll say, we pay that for, we spend money on these vehicles or the house or so on, or a vacation, and they all add up. And they're like, we just want a child. And so it is our goal as an agency to make that happen. And we align them with the best of the best professionals where we really feel the highest probability for success for them.
So what message do you want to give our listeners as it relates to being a surrogate and a family that's looking at this path?
Yeah. I really, every day we just, we get to witness these miracles, 15 years of family building and just kind of being on the inside of what's going on and knowing that, for a surrogate message is obviously they're miracles. I mean, they're angels. They're creating these miracles that without them, I wouldn't have been able to grow my family the way I did. And so just the possibility that they're giving to these intended parents is something that they're going to have forever. So when they achieve their surrogacy journey and they've helped this family grow, this is something they have forever. You can never take that away. And it's a really feel good. And we have a lot of repeat surrogates because when they've completed that first journey, they just thought it was amazing. And so they wanted to do it again. As well as not only helping those intended parents, and this is something that I find is so touching, is that the happiness that not only to the parents, but the grandparents, the family, is just incredible. So yeah, just the thankful part of, how we feel as well as intended parents towards those surrogates. And for them to know that they're going to have so much support within our agency here at Family Source. We have an amazing support group, dedicated case managers where they're never going to feel alone ever. So we make sure that any question that they have is always answered and they're getting that support. And flip-flopping it over to the intended parent side, that support as well. I always like to include that because a lot of intended parents come to us and they don't know the next steps. That's where our own expertise really comes into play. And there's just so many resources for them. Even if it's financials, there's programs out there that help, with grants, because it is overwhelming for some to be able to afford this, to experience the process to grow their family. But to know that when they contact our agency, they're in such wonderful hands because, again, we are definitely making sure that the aligning factors of the professionals who are involved, we make sure that's happening. So the success rate for the intended parents to become parents, to make sure that this actually is successful is, we're looking at like 99%. The only time we ever see that an intended parent does not achieve success is, for example, if they come to us and let's say they have one embryo remaining and they say, you know what, it's not the best quality. If it doesn't work, we're okay with that. We're going to accept that. Maybe they have children already, but they would love to add to their family, but they're at peace if it doesn't work. But 1 in 10 of parents want this to work 100% to where they're not going to stop. It's going to work. It's going to be successful. So I think that's peace of mind to know that this isn't just for the rich and famous or the celebrities. It's happening in real life. And we get to witness this every day.
Oh, Staci, this has been so informative and super helpful. And I know we're gonna, I think is a great place to stop for our first episode, because we're going to dive in a lot deeper into egg donation and everything in our next episode. But I've learned so much, and I still have a ton of questions, but let our audience know where they can find you.
Absolutely. So they can contact us on our website at familysourceconsultants.com. They can reach out to us at info@familysourceconsultants.com, and we will respond to them immediately. And definitely then at that point, we'll schedule a time to talk and get them started with all the information that they need to become a little more educated.
And I just want to say, I think, the three of us can agree, being a parent is one of the most beautiful experiences that we will have in our life. And so for those of our listeners that want that and desire that, we encourage you to reach out to Staci's company and look into the different options that we are going to be sharing in these next 2 episodes. It is a miracle, and we're so fortunate that we've been able to have that. And so we really hope that this will be something that you can take away and hopefully have that experience as well. So thank you for listening.